Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start just by thanking the organisers for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. I'm going to speak for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and my talk is a little bit different. It isn't really a scientific presentation per se. My name is Dr. Mark Kirby, and I'm a scientific advisor with a commercial entity, MacuVision Europe, which makes a macular pigment supplement. So what I'd like to talk about is to tell you about my role, essentially tell you what I do, and how the company that I work for is taking and using all this fantastic research which we've been speaking about all day, and how they've consulted to this research and made a formulation based on that research. But not only that, how they were continuing to bring this research into your practice so that you can make an informed decision on what nutrition you want to recommend for your patients. I think based on the earlier presentations, we now agree there is a general consensus that nutrition is very important for vision. So this is something that you do need to know. And as I said, what I'm going to speak about is how we're going to help you to do that. So let me start just by telling you about MacuVision Europe. MacuVision Europe was established in 2006. The goal of the company was to formulate a macular pigment supplement. That was all, to enrich macular pigment. The supplement, MacuShield, now contains lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. It's been mentioned earlier. And how the company has actually gone about marketing this is very, very exciting. The tagline of the company is "Trust the Science." So what we do, essentially, instead of investing money into marketing and all that, we go the other direction. We support research. We support that science, and then we bring that science to you so you can make an informed decision on the products you want to recommend. So that's essentially what my job is, to literally get into my car, drive to your practice, and present this research from researchers all over the world and provide it to you in a digestible format so that you can understand it and you can make that informed decision. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, what qualifies me to come into your practice and tell you all about this stuff. First thing to say is I'm not an optometrist. My background isn't really in optics. I'm a nutritionist. I studied nutrition in the University College Cork, which is in Ireland. And even back then, I was quite interested in the bioavailability of nutrients. And I did a lot of work on that, bioavailability of vitamins from processed meats, sausages, and things like that. And little did I know that that work was actually going to be very relevant to the work that I do today. But it was after I finished that degree, I met Dr. John Nolan at the time. And he was looking for a nutritionist to work on a weight loss study. He had found that people who were overweight and obese tended to have less macular pigment. So what he wanted to do was see if you could take those overweight people, get them to lose weight, and see if that affected their serum levels of carotenoids and their macular pigment levels. So I went to work at the Macular Pigment Research Group for 4 years, and that's where I completed my PhD. Some of the work I did there, as I said, the weight loss study, that was really interesting. That was fun. I was also involved in that central dip study, which has been referred to once or twice today. And again, that study has really, well, the follow-on study to that study has highlighted the importance of mesozeaxanthin. Again, very relevant to the role which I fulfill today. So let me just jump back. When MacuVision Europe were deciding to formulate a macular pigment supplement, as I said, they went to the science. And as we know, if I test any of you in this room and I examine your macular pigment, I will find three things. I will find lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. And I really enjoyed John's talk earlier on about the dietary sources. But one thing that I took from it, and I imagine everyone else took from it too, is that the amounts of these nutrients in the diet is really quite low. And what you have to also remember is that they're coming in the form of fruits and vegetables, which in some cases, the food isn't particularly bioavailable. Your body has to really work hard to get the nutrients out so that they can be absorbed and get to the back of your eye. So the role for supplementation here is real, and it's extremely relevant. So in formulating a supplement, it only seemed logical that you would include lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. But it goes a little further than that. Based on this, I mean, there are just two examples of some papers here, Max Snodderly, Richard Bone, John Landrum. These guys are really well-respected people in the world of macular pigment research. They've been doing it for many, many years. And a lot of their work, this is a particularly interesting finding, they didn't just tell us that macular pigment is composed of 3 carotenoids. They actually showed us the distribution of those carotenoids. We now know that that central part of the macular pigment, there's my laser here, this central part of the macular pigment, the centralmost carotenoid, is predominantly mesozeaxanthin. And so at the epicenter of your macula, it's predominantly mesozeaxanthin. This has been covered already, but I'll repeat it again. I think that's no harm. As you move away from the center, zeaxanthin becomes more predominant, and lutein is actually the predominant carotenoid in the periphery before the pigment dissipates to optically undetectable levels. So again, when you're going to formulate a supplement to increase this pigment, it would seem logical that you'd include all 3 macular carotenoids. So they made their formulation, 3 macular carotenoids to enrich macular pigment. So does the research stop there? Is it okay to assume that once you take that tablet, that it will go into your digestive system, it will be perfectly absorbed, it will accumulate at the back of your eye, macular pigment will rapidly increase? Is it okay to make that assumption? Is it okay to assume that if you provide it in a hard tablet, that hard tablet will have the same amount of carotenoid in 12 months from now than it does today, that it won't deplete, it won't degrade? And the answer is no. It's not okay to make these assumptions. These have to be investigated. And that's precisely what I mean when we say that we support the science. We support researchers, independent researchers who maintain editorial independence. We support them. They ask the research question, they conduct the trial, and they publish what they find. And then we base our supplement on what they find. This is just an example. Again, it's been mentioned a few times, and I'll mention it again because it's a perfect example of the importance of asking these research questions and investigating your product, basically. The atypical profile, I really like those pictures that Jessica had of the mountain and the volcano and stuff because it's better than my images, basically. But what that study highlighted, I'm not going to go into it again, and what the follow-on study, John's study, what it essentially highlighted was that if you give this individual here, a lutein-based supplement without any mesozeaxanthin, nothing happens. You don't rebuild that profile in a period of 6 months. Whereas if you give them all 3 macular carotenoids, in a period of 6 months, it not only increases the macular pigment to what I think we call it in the paper a clinically desirable macular pigment spatial profile. It not only does that, but it also enriches macular pigment right across the entire spatial profile. This was another interesting paper, and again, it was a paper which is of particular relevance to our product. I really like what John said earlier on, actually, about the 3 macular carotenoids. They're like brothers and sisters. They hang around together. They're found in the same, they're happy together. They're found in the same foods. And this study really highlighted that. It's essentially what it found was, to make quite a complex study really, really simple, if you take a test tube full of 10 mils of lutein, you take another one, 10 mils of zeaxanthin, a third one, 10 mils of mesozeaxanthin, but then you take a fourth one that's actually a mixture of all 3 at the same total concentration. The one with the mixture has a far greater antioxidant capacity than any of the other 3. So again, like John said, they're happier together, they work better together. There is some sort of a synergistic relationship there, which merits further study, absolutely. But it's very, very interesting. And again, if you're going to make a nutritional supplement to increase the macular pigment, these are the things you must consider. So this is the range. This is essentially what you'll see on the shelf. This is the product of consulting that research. The reason I put this one up is because there's a vegetarian option available now. The other ones were available in the capsule shell as a bovine gelatin. So in order to make it suitable for vegetarians, the new product, I think the shell is made of carrageenan, so it's perfectly suitable. The contents is the exact same. Then about a month and a half ago, things got really, really interesting, because as John and Stephen have just eloquently presented, the finding of AREDS2 had huge implications for this industry. What it essentially showed was, I mean, Stephen's covered it really, really well, but what it essentially showed is that you provide the macular carotenoids in addition to these extra nutrients, vitamins and minerals, you can have a real impact on age-related macular degeneration, especially in people who have poor diets, which is huge. Very, very important. And again, it had huge implications for us as a commercial entity, because we had to respond to this. And we did respond to it. And the next slide shows you what we're going to do. MacuShield GOLD it's in the factory at the moment. It's being produced, but it's being produced in response to the AREDS2 trial. Now, I won't say it's the exact same, because what we have in our one is our original MacuShield, our lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. Mesozeaxanthin was not included in AREDS2, but based on what you've heard today, it is quite safe to conclude that the carotenoids work best together. So the addition of mesozeaxanthin really provides a fortified AREDS2 formulation. And this will be available in the coming weeks, start of September, I believe. But again, it highlights the fact that you have to listen to the research. You have to follow what the research says, and this is the product of that. So, is that the end of it? Is that the end for original MacuShield? I had a very long conversation on the phone with John about AREDS2, and essentially what he said was, whenever AMD is in the conversation, you have to go to the AREDS2 data. It's the best data we have, so you have to recommend the AREDS2 formulation. So, what happens with the original MacuShield? Does it disappear? No, it doesn't disappear, because what we saw in the first lecture, and I believe in the next lecture, Professor Hammond's lecture, we are really lucky to have him, and I'm looking forward to it. He's going to speak about the role of macular pigment for visual performance, and I think there's a sports slant on it, so that's going to be really, really interesting. But essentially what we know is that if you enrich your macular pigment, one, we know you can enrich it using all three macular carotenoids quite rapidly. And if you do, vision gets better. This is just a whole list of research papers which supports essentially what I just said. Improvements in terms of contrast sensitivity, photo stress recovery, vision under glare conditions. So that is precisely what our MacuShield, our 3-carotenoid MacuShield is targeting, improving vision, whether that person has AMD or not. So this is kind of cool, and I wanted to show it to you. This was a conference which we went to in Chamonix in February. And it was a conference, a guy called Nick Dash, he's an optom, came up with this idea to get together a whole bunch of optometrists from around Europe, key opinion leaders, to discuss the role of visual excellence. And we were invited along to speak on the role of nutrition in achieving visual excellence. And he chose a high glare environment to do that. That's just some comments there from the guys who were in attendance. You might recognize some of the names. But what we have done as a result of this, we've produced this discussion report. And I think it's going to be really, really useful for all of you. In fact, I think you all have a copy of it in your packs. Essentially, it details quite simply the role of nutrition for visual excellence, all about this light filtration, light scatter, all that. What was discussed, what people's opinions were, and it's summarized in a 4-page booklet. So I just wanted to show you that. I thought that was kind of cool. This is another thing I wanted to show you, MacuShield and precision vision. So we're in very, very early talks, but we're talking with BALPA, that's the British Pilots Association. And they're very, very interested in this. Pilots need to have good vision, and they operate in an extremely high glare environment. So we're talking with them. They're very interested in examining the role of nutritional supplementation for their pilots to give them better vision. So this, as I said, it's early days yet, but this could be the first example of nutrition for vision becoming commonly accepted by people who need really good vision. Pilots, but surgeons, golfers, whoever. This could be the first real example of that. So I thought that was worth mentioning. Now this is unusual. These next 2 slides are my last 2 slides. were added in at the last minute and really have no place at all at a scientific conference, but you're all business people, and I thought you might be interested in it, so I included it. We have a database at MacuVision Europe. We hold a database of about 1,500 or so people who regularly take MacuShield, they give us their phone numbers and their email addresses. And our marketing department conducted market research, and we asked them some questions. So this question, why were you initially interested in MacuShield? I thought the response was quite interesting. So you can see there, my optician advised me to take it. It just shows there really is an awareness, which surprised me, actually. I didn't think the awareness was that high amongst the public, but this would suggest it is. I really like this 23.5% on the end as well. I wanted to enhance my eye health. Again, it shows that the role of nutrition for vision is becoming more common, let's say. But finally, this was really interesting. So we asked them, and I think there was a lady there asking in the last, this is quite relevant to the comment you made. We asked them, did you think your vision got better after a month? And remember, this is subjective data, but it's interesting because it relates to how the patient actually feels. After a month, they said, no, my vision didn't get better. After 3 months or more, asked the same question, did you notice an improvement in your vision after taking MacuShield for 3 months or more? About 79% of people said yes. Now, some of those said yes when I was driving at night, yes when I'm out on a bright sunny day. There were subcategories, but very, very interesting nonetheless, and I thought you might appreciate that. And really, that's all I have to say. So thank you very much for listening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thanks again.